You're locked into Faith Under the Lights with Zach and Nolan, the podcast where faith and sports collide. We will spotlight athletes who are unashamed of the gospel and living boldly for Christ both on and off the field. Don't forget to like, follow, and share this podcast with others who need to hear these powerful testimonies. Faith Under the Lights. Let's get started.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Faith Under the Lights. Got our new co-host with us today, and so it's his first time on here. So it's Mr. Zach Manuel. So Zach, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself and just tell us who you are.
Yeah, so my name's Zach Manuel, obviously. I'm married. I've been married for the last 7 years. I have two little girls that they got my heart, man.
Yeah.
They got everything in me. Born-again Christian, former athlete, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Just, some guy. Right now I work in the refineries. I'm an industrial electrician, supervisor, that role, sometimes on my tools, sometimes not. Just enjoy what I do for a living, man.
There you go. So where are you from? Where do you originally come from?
So I grew up in Southwest Louisiana in a little town called Iowa. It's spelled Iowa.
Yeah.
It's a lot of big confusion for a lot of people.
Right.
We pronounce it Iowa because we're south of I-10.
Yeah.
So if you go north I-10, it'll be Iowa, but down there we call it Iowa.
Yeah. Every time I would drive to Houston when I was a kid, and I would pass through that, I'm like, Iowa, what is up with this? But yeah,
it's so little. I tell people I've been living here in Gonzales area for 12 years, and I tell people I'm from Lake Charles. And that's because that's generally what they know.
Yeah.
And if somebody's familiar with Lake Charles, and I say, well, I'm from Iowa.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, I know where Iowa is at. Well, then I say, well, then I'm really from the Blue Settlement. And nobody does that. So
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, nobody does.
Yeah.
It's a little small village north of Iowa, Louisiana.
Okay. So in my travels, it seems the further you get away from Louisiana, the more you have to tell people you're just from either Lake Charles, New Orleans, or Baton Rouge, and that's it. Yeah.
Maybe Shreveport.
Yeah. So, well, good, man. Tell us a little bit about who you pull for. This is a sports and a faith podcast, so we got to know who your teams are.
Yeah. So I do follow professional sports. I'd have to say in NFL right now, I don't follow any particular team.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain players I really like. Obviously, all the LSU alum.
Yeah.
I follow them pretty hard. I'm a pretty big Josh Allen guy. I like me some Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of Patrick Mahomes.
You were
in any way, shape, or form.
You were pretty stoked.
I was
Sunday.
pretty stoked up this past Sunday.
Yeah.
That's an NFL, MLB, ride or die Astros guy. Grew up 2 hours away from the old Astrodome.
Yeah.
I remember whenever they built Minute Maid. We went. And I remember being little. I was the only I've still never been to another professional sporting event other than the Astros game. And I remember going there. Way back in the day. Some of our listeners probably not going to know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But, I remember the Mariners came to play. And that's whenever the Mariners were the truth, man.
Yeah.
I remember A-Rod was young, playing shortstop. You
Griffey.
had Edgar Martinez, the best DH of all time. You had Griffey in center fielder.
Buhner, Bone.
And you had Aaron Bourne. Randy Johnson was pitching that day.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It was the full circle of a baseball kid.
Yeah.
And I'd never forget I was sitting down the third base line. They hit a foul ball to third base by the bullpen, where the bullpens used to be at the Astrodome. And A-Rod came and got it right there. And, dude, I was so stoked. He was like 5 feet away from me. Biggest person I'd ever seen in my life at that time. So big Astros fan. Then ride or die LSU, man.
Yeah.
Every sport, I love all of LSU.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a tough time to be an LSU football fan right now. Basketball team's carrying some weight, but the football team, whew.
Yeah, it's going to be better next time we shoot something.
Yeah.
I got a good feeling versus Vanderbilt.
There you go. I hope you're right.
I never thought I'd have to say that.
Yeah. But Vanderbilt's
there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not so much an indictment against us, but I never thought Vanderbilt would be a very good opponent.
Yeah. They've knocked off some teams that nobody thought they would be on the same field with. Well, man, it's good to have you. It's good really, yeah, man, this is kind of a prayer answered. I was trying to carry this on my own and I thought I could do it. And, a lot of times when we think we can do something on our own, that's usually when it falls down.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about who I could ask, and your name kept popping up, man. And so we've got a mutual friend that I talked to last weekend, and I told him that it was you that was coming on. He's like, dude, he's going to be perfect. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait for it.
Good, man. Just,
no,
let it go.
We're going to be okay. So give me a little bit of your background in sports. You said you were kind of an athlete. My background in sports is I was never good enough to make the team in high school. And so I played like peewee ball. And then when I turned 18, I was fortunate enough to make a little semi-pro team because on the tryout, I played out of my mind and they picked me up. And I went on 8 years of playing mediocre baseball. But, I've always loved sports and everything. And so that's kind of how this came about, or one of the reasons this came about. But you, on the other hand, you've got a little bit more experience when it comes to athletics than I do. So give us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, I lettered in 3 sports, football, baseball, track. I actually threw shot put in track.
Because I had you down for a sprinter, so maybe I was.
Actually, what's funny is my freshman year, I made varsity returning punts and kicks.
Okay.
Because I was the fastest kid in Iowa.
There you go.
Because when I lost a lot of weight going into my freshman year, and I was pretty. I could pick them up, put them down, dude.
There you go.
And then over that time frame, it's kind of funny how my body changed. I started high school at 125. I graduated at 250.
Oh, wow.
So I doubled my body weight.
Yeah. I
was still running a solid 4.7, 4.8 at 250. So I was.
You was getting the extra lunch at lunchtime?
Yeah, man. So what happened, big news in Iowa, they built a McDonald's there when I was in high school, and that flipped.
That's huge in a small town.
We didn't have anything.
Yeah.
We had nothing. I couldn't believe it. And whenever we got that, man, it was legit. So my cousin had gave me a car, poor white people stuff. My cousin gave me a car, and it was a piece of junk.
Yeah.
And my sister was on hard times, so she bought it from me for $500, and I spent at about $490 of that at McDonald's in between workouts, 2 a days.
What's your go-to at McDonald's?
I don't eat there anymore.
Yeah.
If I do, it's for breakfast.
Yeah, I got you.
I would strongly recommend that no human being consume McDonald's food.
Yeah.
But
don't come after us, McDonald's.
No. But I later than that. Unfortunately, I didn't make it long on the baseball team. Not a talent thing, attitude.
Yeah.
Me and the coach didn't see eye to eye. I didn't really respect authority at that time.
Okay.
And I quit. That's the only thing I've ever quit.
Yeah.
And it's been my greatest regret ever because the following year they won state.
Oh, wow. And, that hurts a little bit.
I was super happy for all the guys.
Yeah.
Because everybody on there, man, they worked their tail off. They did the right things, and they deserved, to they actually beat the number 16 team in the nation on the way there, which was Parkview Baptist.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, they were the truth, man.
Right, no doubt.
And they beat them. And, I was just as happy for those guys I would have been on the field because I knew those guys. And I'm very close friends with a lot of those guys, and they deserved it, man.
Yeah.
And, it's just a big regret for me. It's the only thing I ever quit.
Yeah.
And thankfully the coach didn't let me come back. At that time I didn't understand that, but I'm very thankful today he didn't let me come back because I needed to learn that lesson.
So, you played football as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I played just about every single position in football outside of quarterback and cornerback.
They didn't want to let you throw the rock, huh?
Well, I threw the rock in Pee Wee.
Yeah.
And then once I got to high school, there were some dudes in front of me that it just wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So they put me where I was best. I was a very violent, angry little guy. So they put me in the mix of it, man. I played a lot of defense. And then I finished up in high school on the offensive line. Not very big people over there where I'm from. It's not like some of the schools around here.
So if you are big, you're getting put in the trenches.
I was every bit of 250, which in Iowa, man, I was a big guy.
Right. So
I played those 2 sports, and then my junior and senior year I threw shot put in track.
Good. Well, so with this being a sports podcast, it's also a faith podcast. So what about your journey in faith? Give us a little bit of your background when it comes to, knowing Christ and kind of where you're coming from, where you've been, where you're going. Give us some of that.
So my family is very faithful people. Mm-hmm. They love the Lord. I'm not going to say that we lived it out the best as a family, but we always had emphasis that, Christ was king in our life. I didn't really understand that at a young age.
Yeah.
I didn't really care to understand that very much at a young age. I got more into in a small town, there's not much to do.
Right.
And I was pretty popular. Had a lot of friends, I was captain of the football team, somewhat what they would call it, captain of the football team. We never really had an official captain. I was definitely one of the leaders of the team. And, I rode the coattails of that.
Kind of let it go to your head a little bit.
Definitely let it go to my head. I had a big head, bad attitude.
Yeah.
My biggest flaw was I was very violent. And I'll get into that a little bit, but I was a very violent young man.
Mm-hmm.
Me and all my friends, we had a reputation for violence in the area.
Yeah.
And, I took pride in that. Foolishly, I didn't know any better. I took pride in that.
Yeah.
And, that of course led me down a long road of alcoholism for quite a while. I drank a lot. I was never much into drugs or anything of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
It was never my thing. My brother has been an addict for the last 25, 30 years. And it was nothing. I didn't want any part of that.
Yeah.
And, so I substituted it with alcohol, which is so much better, and it caused me a lot of pain and grief, and just to, I'm sure we'll go through, my testimony a little more in the future, but, just on my end, I ended up with a DUI. I'm a convicted felon. Mm-hmm. I had a charge for aggravated assault on a guy that I didn't even know. And, that cost me a lot of money, mm-hmm. a lot of time, a lot of reflection. And, and through that process, I met my wife. She was going to school at McNeese for nursing, and she was on the rodeo team.
Okay.
And, it was funny. First time I met her, she asked me if I played sports, and I was like, oh, yeah,
I'm the captain of the
I gave her a little spiel, man.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even think to ask her because I didn't think she was athletic at all.
Right.
And, a couple of weeks later, maybe I asked her, I was like, you ever play any sports? She was like, yeah. She was like, I was a world champion barrel racer, 2007.
Wow.
Youth. I'm like,
McNeese had a rodeo team. She was on the rodeo. Okay. So she's rodeoing in college.
Yeah. Well, at that time I met her, she had just quit.
Okay.
And she focused on her nursing career.
Gotcha.
But she did bounce around a couple community colleges and then ended up at McNeese.
Okay.
And that's how we met.
Yeah.
She got lucky and met me.
What a wonderful time.
She got lucky. And but eventually she moved back home. And she's from here, from Santa Monica. And about a year later, I followed her. And when I came over here, to me, it was a chance at a new life, man.
Okay.
I had a really bad reputation. I did not have a good group of friends. They're not bad people. We were just doing the wrong things.
Right.
And I saw where my life was going because my brother is a career criminal, just to be honest. I'm not trying to cut him down, but he's been in prison my entire adult life.
Yeah.
And I was terrified of that. I did not want that for me. And I knew I didn't really have any self-control.
Yeah.
Everybody thought I was real nice guy. And I was a nice guy, but man, inside I was an evil person.
Yeah.
I was a very angry, manipulative, evil person. I'll steal your radio and I'll steal your TV and help you look for it.
Wow.
I was not a good person in any way, shape, or form on the inside.
So thank God that your wife goes to McNeese and you guys line up and meet each other, because then you get to come to.
She brings me over here.
Well, let's clear one thing up. You said over here is called the what?
Santa Monica.
So
Saint Amant.
Yeah. So if anybody ever tries to look that up, it's Saint Amant.
Yeah. Just say you're from Gonzales. That's what I do with Highway and Lake Charles.
Yeah. There we go. I tell you what, we'll put the Google link to in the description.
Yeah. And so when I came over here, like I said, I thought it was a new chance at life. Mm-hmm. Ran into some financial troubles and things like that. Started a new career over here, and I'll share this at some point in time, but I had a really close encounter with Christ, very close. And from that moment, I wanted to get closer to God. I'd always believed in God. I always believed in the scriptures. I just didn't live a percentage of it, And I knew that. I used to say the little prayer at night, God, if I die tonight, I pray to go to heaven. That was pretty much my prayer life,
right?
And I had a guy at work invite me to a church service at the church Santa Monica, Broken Chains. And I said, all right, man, I'll give it a shot.
Now, did you resonate with that because of your alcoholism? That like, is that something that?
So actually, it's just something I got invited to.
Okay, so it wasn't.
Honestly, I had quit drinking before I came to Broken Chains. I was addicted to tobacco.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't really have any addictions.
Right.
And I wanted to get right. And somebody invited me to church.
You just took the opportunity.
Yeah. Not being from here, not having any friends, the only people I knew was my wife's family. And she wasn't my wife yet. She was still my girlfriend. Right. I really wasn't sure what I was doing in life.
Yeah.
And I was living in a rundown little apartment, and didn't really have every month I had to decide what bills I was not going to pay.
Right.
The life when I'm talking.
Yeah, no, I know it all too well.
It was the struggle. Yeah. And he invited me to church, man. And, that night, it was October 24, 2014.
Wow.
That night, I heard the gospel for the first time, and Christ came into my life in a way that I had never felt before.
Yeah.
And I totally surrendered. And, a supernatural thing that happened, because I had a very radical transformation and salvation all at the same time. But something supernatural that happened to me was I was addicted to tobacco, and I never saw a single thing wrong with that.
Right.
I would dip 1 to 2 cans of Red Seal every day.
Oh, wow.
And when I was at the altar crying out to God, it's hard for me to explain. It does sound a little ridiculous to some people, but the addiction to tobacco evaporated.
Really?
I couldn't even smell it anymore. And once again, I had no conviction behind it.
Wow.
But I could not even stomach being around it. And I walked out and I threw that can away.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, 6 years later, I'd kind of fell back into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, man, we do that as Christians.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay, but it's something I did.
Yeah.
And, I had to fight it back off again. But, that supernatural moment of my salvation was something that told me that, this was real. And when I walked out, I was this guy. I walked in a full-fledged heathen, man.
Yeah.
And when I walked out, I was this guy. And, it's been a beautiful journey ever since, man. Now I have a great career. And I don't say all this to say that when you become a Christian, all of a sudden you get money, you get a great career. A lot of times it's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
I got fortunate to be born on a farm where I was born, and I just have a different work ethic than a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I credit that to my upbringing. Yeah. And I always rose wherever I worked fairly quickly. And it was because I was just willing to do the things a lot of people weren't. Yeah. And that's not to take nothing away from those people. It's just where I was. And, I took that and I've moved up to where I'm at now. My wife is a nurse practitioner. We have a beautiful home. Our little girls have things that I never thought I'd have. Coming from where I come, I grew up in the middle of 3 rice fields with nothing. My gun was my toy was a pellet gun. Yeah. And the other toy was the snake in the rice field across the street. Me and my brother spent countless hours shooting snakes in the rice field. Man, that was the funnest thing we had to do. Yeah. We didn't have TV like talking about. So yeah, it was good.
So when you had that radical transformation, and you say, whenever you become a Christian, there's some things that happen. A lot of people think it's going to be green pastures and everything's going to be rainbows and everything, and a lot of times you lose a lot of people that you're close to. And
generally the opposite.
Yeah. So did any of that happen to you? Like, is it?
Oh, can you recall? Absolutely, man.
What about the people closer? Like, how did your girlfriend at the time take that? Obviously, she took it well since she's your wife, right?
She didn't take it well. I was very radical, very, very radical.
So you went a complete 180.
180, man. Yeah. I walked out, and I was in my mind, I was Billy Graham.
Wow.
I was going to heaven, and I was doing everything I could to get everybody else in there.
Everybody's coming with me.
I didn't have any money, but what I had, I bought a Bible. Yeah. And, I was all in on the word, man. And I spent every Friday at that service for 5 years. Started coming to church at the Church of Santa Mall on Sundays, great pastors there, man. And, so much discipleship and growing and learning going on there. And, it took me a long time to rein my wife in, and look, I'm just being honest, and she knows this. It almost ended us. Yeah. Me becoming saved and changing my way of thinking. I was not the same person anymore. Right. And what I lived on was the parable of the oxen, that Jesus gives. And he says to not be unequally yoked.
Yeah.
And people don't know that as a parable of the oxen, but it is, because that the yoke that a lot of people take that to say believer, non-believer, black, white,
right,
Baptist, Catholic. That's not what he's saying. He's given the image of oxen, and oxen had a yoke around their neck.
Yeah.
And if one of those oxen moves at a different pace than the other, they'll just go in circles.
Exactly.
They have to move at the same pace as each other. And I wanted somebody to move at my pace. And what I didn't understand was there was nobody moving at my pace.
Right. Yeah. You were on fire.
I knew I was going to die. And then I got saved.
Yeah.
And you have a different level of gratitude at that moment than somebody who's had a decent life and it was not a complete hellion like me.
Right.
Finding the truth, it was like, wow.
And they're kind of comfortable where they're at.
Yeah. And that's the biggest death to most people, is they're very comfortable where they're at.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to really see that this was the woman I wanted to marry.
Mm-hmm.
From that point, and I don't want to be graphic or anything, but we went abstinent from that point, from 2014 until 2017 when we got married.
Yeah.
And we had been together for 3 years up to that point. So, we were not abstinent in the previous relationship. So the things I asked her to do for me and my faith was pretty radical for somebody who didn't believe in the faith.
Yeah, no doubt.
To that level.
Right.
And then, over time I matured and I became patient, and I started to understand that there's give and take in a marriage and a relationship. And just because I'm this way doesn't mean I have to force anything on her that way. And the more I backed off, the more I saw her come forward.
Now, when you were backing off, were you going to the Lord and praying and really hammering it home? Like,
I lived in prayer, man.
Yeah.
I still do.
Yeah.
I love prayer. It's my favorite thing to do.
Right.
I could not live my life without prayer.
Yeah.
And, seeking God and to the point that I was going to leave her.
Yeah.
I was, and it wasn't because she was a bad person. It's just we were just moving at different paces. And, I was leaving.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I had told her, I'm done. And I'll never forget, man. She was standing in the door of my truck, and I told her, I'm done. This is over. And she started crying. And I was never a person to get soft-hearted. Tears did not affect me in any way, shape, or form.
Wow.
But in that moment, when I tell you that God completely transformed my heart.
Yeah.
I mean, I went from no love for her to the deepest love in a single conversation. She didn't say anything, do anything. She was just there. God completely transformed my heart in the conversation. I went from saying I'm leaving to saying I'm never leaving you.
That's amazing.
I'm going to be with you till the day I die. And I still tell her today, if you leave me, I'm coming.
Yeah.
You can't leave.
Make room.
You are with me until the end.
Now, she knows all this stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
She's not going to find out on this podcast.
Breaking news.
Okay.
She's probably not going to watch this podcast. No.
Okay. All right.
She's heard me talk publicly enough.
All right.
She's probably
good.
not going to watch it.
Good. All right. So all this radical change happens. You're walking it out. Where does it take you? Where does this new faith of yours, where does it end up taking you?
It takes you down a fun road.
Yeah.
I got to do a lot of street ministry down Florida Boulevard.
Which is a great place to do street ministry, probably.
Just be prayed up.
Yeah.
And I just tell people that it's kind of funny, but it's serious.
Yeah.
There's some serious things going on down there.
Yeah.
And in that area, got to minister to the homeless, man. I actually counseled at the Ascension House Sober Living Home for about a year or so. I ended up leading the ministry that I got saved in about 5 years later, or 4 years later. Led it for about a year. And then I walked away from the church in Santa Maria altogether for about 3 years. Well, now it's been about 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And I still love everybody there. It just wasn't the church. It was time for me to move.
Right.
I felt it in my spirit. I felt it in prayer. And it was just time for me to move. And when I left, I immediately got put on turnaround after turnaround after turnaround, and we just never found a home church. And then the pastor that was leading the Broken Chains ministry started a new church and invited me over there. And I started going there for about a year and a half. I was actually serving as the men's pastor there. And then, they had some things go on at the church. Pastor had to step down, and I actually stepped in and we started a new church in February of this year.
Yeah.
Called Redemption Church in Gonzales. And, I was doing that while I was working full time in the plants. I was working night shifts 7 days a week and
12-hour shifts.
12-hour shifts.
That's brutal.
14-hour shifts for a supervisor.
Yeah.
And I would leave early on Saturday nights and go home, go to sleep, wake up and preach on Sunday mornings.
Wow.
Get done and go back to sleep for an hour or two and then wake up and go work that whole night.
And married with children at this time.
Married with 2 children.
Yeah.
And, it wore me down, wore my marriage down, it wore all my relationships around me down.
Yeah.
And it was just time. I feel like we did God's will. I don't look at it as a failure in any way, shape, or form. There were people baptized. There were families saved. There's people that got saved in that church, through that ministry that are serving the Lord full-fledged today with 3-4 kids, and I mean, they're all in.
And you guys were reaching people that it wasn't the people that were coming into the building, right? You guys were reaching people way outside of where you were.
The online ministry was much larger than the in-person ministry.
Yeah, because it was a small place, right?
Yeah, we couldn't fit 100 people in there.
Yeah.
Only on Easter.
Yeah. And everybody had to love each other.
I mean, 70, 80 people max is where we were at, which we were totally fine with that.
Yeah.
We were totally fine with it. We were more intimate with each other. Everybody knew each other. Everybody knew each other's kids, and that's the image that we always wanted. And I'm sorry.
Good.
But the online ministry, we would live stream on Facebook, and I mean, some of them videos would go over 2,000, 3,000 views.
Wow.
All glory to God, man.
Yeah.
A lot of people came to that church because of the online ministry. Mm-hmm. Some of the people that gave, some of the most faithful givers to that church were from Facebook and online ministry.
Yeah.
They weren't even there in person.
Yeah.
It was just people that knew me in my previous life before I was born again.
Right.
They knew me. And when they saw me preaching on Facebook, they were like, there's no way that guy is preaching. Like, this dude is diabolical.
Yeah.
And then when they see me, they knew it was something real.
Right.
And my favorite part of all that is my inbox. The people that reach out to me in my inbox, I mean, it's so many people to this day.
Yeah, you're still getting it down.
Man, they reach out for prayer. People I grew up with. I haven't seen them in years, but I grew up with these people. You don't lose that love and that, relationship with those people, man. And, call me for parental advice, call me for Christian advice, advice for anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not somebody to give out advice, I am not that kind of guy. It's Christ in me.
Yeah, but you're tapped into.
It's who I'm with. It's not who I am.
Right.
And who I'm with, he's got some pretty good advice.
Yeah.
It's, go back to your previous question. God's way doesn't make sense to the world. And God says that.
Yeah.
The Bible tells us that the things of God are foolishness to man.
Yeah.
And that the message of the cross is foolishness to man. And it is foolishness to a natural mind. It was always foolishness to me. I didn't believe some Jew died on the cross 2,000 years ago for something I did yesterday. That was foolishness. And truthfully, he didn't. He died so he could transform my mind and my heart into who I am now. And through doing that, they're able to see that who I'm with is real, and what I'm walking in is real. And man, I still have, I have struggles, man. I mean, look, man, marriage is tough. Yeah. And I know some Christians are going to watch this and maybe they're going through it at home, man. Look, I've packed bags. My wife's packed bags. I mean, man, we've come close to throwing in the towel, man. But I'm telling you, if you persevere through the Lord, not through your own strength, not through coming up with, psychobabble to figure it out, but through the gospel.
Yeah.
And when I started to love her as Christ loved the church, our marriage went to another level.
That's a big one.
And I started to understand her and not just her, but all my relationships. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to share the gospel with people you don't love.
Yeah.
If you don't love them, you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I was doing that. I was sharing the gospel with people I thought were flat out idiots and they're never going to get it. I was so obnoxious and blind to see who I was before Christ touched me.
Yeah.
That I didn't realize I was worse than everybody I've ever ministered to.
Yeah. You got to get to that point.
Yeah.
Where
you have to love the people you're sharing the gospel with.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a big part for me, man. And so when I started preaching at that church, there was a time before in my life where I preached a lot and I didn't love the people the way that I love the people at Redemption Church. I love those people, man. I talk to several members all the time still, and they've stayed together we had to shut that church down in July. I forgot to say that.
Yeah.
And that entire congregation stuck together and went to a new church.
Really?
And they all still hang out together. Yeah. I mean, the Lord did an amazing work.
I used to watch some of the, when Big Zach would get up there and give his sermons, I used to watch some of those on Sunday mornings before I went.
Pretty groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. And so tell us maybe what's your go-to Bible verse?
Go-to Bible verse would be Ephesians 2:8-9. It says that we are saved by grace through faith, not of works, so that no man can boast, is a layman's terms for it. I love to take that to heart because my biggest flaw outside of the violence and everything was pride.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was so proud of, but I was very proud.
Right.
And
I think we all go through that.
And as an athlete,
yeah,
you work your tail off. You just want to get a little bit of credit.
Yeah.
I was never somebody that really needed a pat on the back, but I didn't mind one.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
So in my Christianity, it was no different when I first got saved.
Yeah.
It's funny that we say I got saved, but then we act as if I saved me. No, I got saved.
Yeah.
Somebody else had to save me.
Yeah.
I was not able to save myself.
Couldn't do it alone.
The sin that I was in. And so when I read Ephesians 2:8-9, if you go up a couple verses to Ephesians 2:5, he says that while we were dead in our trespasses, I've never seen a dead man save himself. I've never seen a dead man resurrect himself. Even Christ didn't resurrect himself. God resurrected Christ.
Yeah.
And it takes life to give life. He said, while we were dead in our trespasses, Christ died for the ungodly. And I'll stick with that. That'll be where I land at for the rest of my life, is on Ephesians 2:8-9, because it reminds me daily that I did not save me. I did not do this. And it's also not all dependent upon me.
Right. So I want to tell the audience, I mean, one of the reasons that I brought you onto this podcast is because of your wealth of knowledge in the Bible and the things that you've been through. And, I've played church for probably about 11 to 12 years, and just really started, after my situation with COVID kind of woke me up.
Mm-hmm.
And gotten to where, hey, I'm really starting to really get into the spiritual disciplines and reading the Bible and learning and just trying to dig deep. But I felt like a guy like you could really help me. It definitely help the podcast. But I'm really not worried about that. I want the gospel to go forth. And I thought that, bringing somebody on like you would definitely help that. So
honored, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What is it about the podcast? What is it about it that excites you?
Well, it's my two favorite things to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, well, third, I love talking about my kids.
Right.
My kids they're wild cards, man.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're getting every day, and I love it. I love the chaos.
It's controlled chaos.
It's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I love it. And, but I love my faith,
mm-hmm.
and I love sports. And I love seeing, a person who is an athlete can either be, you don't have to be a dominant personality or anything of that nature, but you do have to have some drive. You have to have some discipline. You have to have some want to. I don't know anybody that plays sports just to play them.
Right.
Maybe some people do, but, they don't rise up.
Yeah.
You got to want to be the best in sports. And it's funny because it's such a conundrum between faith and sports. They're really two completely opposite, polar things.
Yeah.
Our faith is granted through the work of Christ, but you only excel in sports through your own work.
Yeah.
And, I think when, having an athletic mindset and having to work my tail off for everything I've gotten, it's really easy to give myself credit for the things I've gotten in the faith as well.
Yeah.
So, to come on this podcast and to help give out this message, I would love to remind those that we talk to, hey, you're not doing this, you're doing that, and your hard work and your strive for excellence is going to take you to another level where you're at in that thing. But on this side, it's your submission and to his work and his excellence and what he's done. So it's a very good balance in my mind. Of yes, Hebrews 12 tells us to run our race with perseverance and patience, and that produces perfection.
Right.
And I, just how this says, and remember the Titans. Whenever he says, Coach, you did ask us for a perfect season. It's like, we might not be able to win every game, but we have to give a perfect effort.
Yeah.
And as an athlete, you have to give the perfect effort. And as a Christian, those two things just melt together, man. It's a beautiful balance of self-will and also surrenderance to the Lord's will.
Yeah. I always run across this Matthew McConaughey clip where he's talking about not half butting it, but he says the other way. I'm trying not to cuss on here. And he says, whatever you do, if you give it all you got, whatever the result is,
you can live with it.
Yeah, you can live with it. And so if you go halfway in sports, you can expect halfway results.
That's what you're going to get.
If you go halfway in your walk with Christ, then you're not going to get everything that he has for you.
I'm not a coach. I have coached before. I know you've coached a lot. But I look at a coach like God, man, and a coach does not want a lukewarm athlete that doesn't care.
Right.
And as me in the supervision, I can relate it.
Yeah.
I will take a guy working for me that doesn't really have much of a clue of what we're doing, but he's hustling.
Yeah.
And he's after it. And he's hungry for knowledge.
Yeah, and you can tell his heart's in it.
I will keep that guy around me as long as I possibly can. And the guy who is a top journeyman and knows everything, and calls in twice a week and lays up and tries to hide from me,
or I'm too good for that job,
but he could be phenomenal with what he does.
Adios.
Good luck.
No doubt. What fires you up about when you see lately I've been seeing a lot of these athletes, man, that are really they're using their platform to talk about God. To CJ Stroud did it the other night when they beat the Cowboys. Thank God. You're not okay. Yes, sir. You're not a Cowboys fan.
No.
CJ Stroud, he really went off and said a lot of things. The kicker for Detroit. Then you sent me a guy on high school. So what is it about that fires you up? What's
just boldness, man?
Yeah.
I love people being bold and just standing up for what it is you believe in. I would prefer that to be Christianity. But I love boldness and sincerity.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about Jesus is he was a total rebel and outlaw.
Yeah.
And I'm not, advocating for being an outlaw, but I am advocating for, standing up for what it is you believe is the truth.
Right.
And hopefully that's Christianity. And if it's not, that's why we're here.
Right.
But, to see those kids, and not just kids, I mean, some of them are older now. But, especially the younger ones, and take a CJ Stroud, man. I mean, that guy's got a massive platform.
Huge platform.
Huge platform. And people come at him left and right all day long, 3 times sideways. And his money depends on what comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And for him to stand there and give glory to God and not himself, it's not only, what I love about CJ Stroud and guys like that.
What's that?
It's not only that they give God glory for everything they have. They also never give themselves any.
Yeah.
They give their teammates glory.
Yeah.
They talk about how hard their team works.
Yeah, it's every interview.
It's never about them. Yep. And that is the essence of Christianity.
Yeah.
So when I see that those kids are out there and they're giving glory not to themselves, but they're giving glory to the one who gave them the ability in the first place. Yes, it does take self-discipline. It does take drive and will. And, everything in life, you have to have a goal and a vision as to where you want to be.
Right.
Or you're just going to be tossed around like a wave at sea, man. You have to have something to hold on to, some kind of end goal that you have in mind and strive towards that. Well, these people have done that. And now that they've gotten there, they're not patting themselves on the back for getting there. They're giving God glory for giving them that ability.
Yeah.
And to be bold in today's world and to go against what the narrative of the media is an empowering and beautiful thing. And, one of the most beautiful things about the church, the church is picked on a lot.
Right.
But what people don't understand if they don't really study is that the little bitty small church that started after the death of Christ brought down the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
It destroyed the Roman Empire from the inside out because they fought against abortion. They fought against sexual immorality, human trafficking, gladiators, and murder for gain. You know, they treated life as if life was precious.
Right.
And it was the first time that the Romans had ever seen that. And their willpower to fight against bowing down to Caesar is why they were thrown into lions' den. It's why they were thrown into the gladiators' pits. They were burned at the stakes and crucified. And, you know, they went through those deaths, not to say that they would become a martyr, but they went through those deaths because they believed in the Lord and they were not going to back off of that. And they believed in one thing, that Jesus is Lord, not Caesar.
Yeah.
You know, and you see that today, that, you know, God has always had a remnant of people, man.
Right.
No matter whatever the world's been at, you know, we've talked about this before, but John chapter 1 says, the light shineth in the darkness and the darkness could not comprehend it.
Can't stick around.
You know, not only can it not overcome it, it can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
It has no idea of how to comprehend the power of Christ.
Yeah.
And you know, you see a dark media out there, and you see light coming forward, and they don't even know it's coming. I might know it's coming. You might see it coming, because real recognizes real, and light knows light. And I'm like, hey, this dude's about to drop a bomb right here.
Yeah.
And they don't even know it's coming because they have no clue. And boom, you know, it's a truth bomb hit right there.
You know, it's crazy. You know what? I've started to see, you know, a couple of years ago, they were shutting it down. They were cutting off, you know, they cut off a CJ Stroud interview. And who was the other guy? He played for the Saints. He was tight end Watson.
Ben Watson.
Yeah.
Ben Watson cut him off mid-interview.
Yeah, they cut him off mid-interview.
There's a lot of them like that. It's just, you know, a couple that we see.
But now they're letting them go. You know, it's all over the place. Anytime Stroud gets on the mic, anytime the linebacker for the Saints,
Demario Davis.
Man, anytime he gets on, it's like you're going to get a whole sermon.
Yeah.
And so they're letting them go. And so I'm pretty stoked about that. But you talked about back in the Roman Empire days. You know, those Christians were standing up for their faith, and they were bold, and there was no comfort about it.
There was no award.
Yeah, nobody was comforted.
There was no award, and nobody on a podcast patting them on the back. You know, they had to watch each other be murdered and ripped apart.
Right.
And the beautiful thing about that is the people that were witnessing these Christians being murdered and martyred converted to Christianity, because they had never seen somebody believe in something to that point.
Exactly.
You know, and not only that, you know, in America today, we act as if abortion is this horrible thing, which it is. We know it is. It's terrible. But, you know, I've heard a lot of people say, I can't believe that comes in people's head. I'm like, that's always been in people's head.
Yeah.
Why do you think Jesus was in Egypt?
Yeah.
You know, and because they were killing infants.
It's not new.
It was always part of mankind to kill infants. They're still killing infants in other countries right now for not being the right gender.
Exactly.
You know, and that is a sick and disgusting thing of mankind. But the first people who ever combated that in the history of mankind was the Christian church.
Yeah.
Not the Jewish church. It was the Christian church that stood up for the rights and the lives of the unborn.
Yeah.
And I love that about the church now. And as we see this massive wave of even this past election where everything was ran on abortion, which is insanity.
Yeah.
But it was ran on abortion. But you see the way the country voted and said, no, we value infant life. And Christians are becoming more bold.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And so part of the reason that I really wanted to do this is because, you know, my heart is with these younger kids, from, you know, the little guys that are just starting to play ball, little guys and gals that are just starting to play ball, all the way up through high school. That's kind of where my wheelhouse has always been, coaching that age group. And I want to give them some encouragement, because in that group, and I was talking to a pastor last night at a high school basketball game I was at. There's kids on those teams, on those rosters. There's probably kids that we were watching last night that are Christians, you know, but the world has always told them to put something, put it out, get it out of here. It doesn't belong here. Don't talk about that here. That's so opposite of what the Bible tells us to do. And so my hope for this podcast is to talk to those athletes that are living boldly and they're not ashamed, and to be able to maybe give some hope to another person, another kid that's going to be watching this and tuning in. Maybe how does whatever they're doing, whatever this athlete that we're interviewing, whatever they're doing, how they're living boldly, how they're talking to their teammates about Christ, maybe they can give them some pointers and be able to spring them off of that. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, we need it.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's get into some fun questions, which this is, I'm sure you're having fun, talking about this kind of stuff.
Man.
Sports.
I do this all day.
Yeah.
I do it all day.
let's talk about this. If you could have dinner with any biblical figure, who would it be?
Adam.
So just about everybody, because I was almost going to say except for Jesus, because that's usually where everybody goes.
Yeah, I'll see him.
You'll see him. Makes sense. Why Adam?
Let him know I forgive him.
That's big. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine being Adam.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, he didn't have a roadmap, right?
Couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
I pray, I believe he's in heaven with the Lord, because I love my God and I know who my God is.
Yeah.
And I don't think he feels it now. Maybe I'm just being a little too deep. I'm not trying to be.
No, it's good.
But, the fall of man was at his hand. And I couldn't imagine. I mean, man, I get a ticket. I hate to call my wife. I couldn't imagine the fall of man and infanticide and everything that, the world has come to. Because when God created Adam in the garden, death was not even on the plate.
Wow.
It didn't come till chapter 3, that he said you'll die.
Yeah.
Up to that point, there was never a death in the picture. We were given eternal life in that moment through Adam. And in the fall is where death was the sentence, and to know that not only you brought sin, but you brought death, which most people don't understand that in this time, that sin equals death. God wasn't playing then. He's not playing today.
Yeah, I think that's a linchpin in where we need to be as believers. We need to really understand.
It literally equals death.
Yeah.
It's not a figure of speech. It's not just a pat on. It's not a bad thing. It literally equals death.
Yeah. And so, well, let me ask you this. Levels of sin, does it matter? I mean, is all sin?
Sin is sin, man.
Sin.
I mean, that's straight out the mouth of Christ.
There you go.
We don't have to agree with it.
Yeah.
I don't understand a lot of what Jesus said. My favorite parables are the ones he explains.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for that parable of the sower, I wouldn't have a clue what he's talking about.
No doubt.
But, no, man, sin is sin because of what sin is. Sin is death.
Yeah.
And I put it this way. The amount of sin in your life just shows you the distance you have between you and Christ.
Yeah.
So if it's really bad or if it's really a lot of sins, I put it like this. So my brother has served more time in penitentiary than most people who have committed murder, but my brother has never done a violent act. He's never done anything like that. It's all driving violations, drug charges, and nothing massive, just for himself. But they have something in the judicial system called habitual offender.
Right.
And that carries a life sentence. If you get to a certain point of misdemeanor crimes, it is a life sentence.
Yeah.
And if the world is not going to look at it any differently, then why should we?
Right.
And furthermore, I understand why you asked that question to get this answer out of me. That is one of the most evil questions a person can ask. At what point in your marriage do you look at it and say, how much can I get away with?
Yeah.
How much is too much?
Yeah.
I watch Hallmark at home. I couldn't tell you a single character or anything, but my wife likes Hallmark. So, I do things because my wife appreciates it and she knows I love her. It has nothing to do with me, but that's how a relationship works. And if you don't have that with Christ, you're not fooling anybody.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sayings that God ever gave me was Jesus knows who he knows and he knows who he doesn't. And if you're going to walk that line, if that's even something you'll flirt with, to say, well, I don't do this, I just do that.
Yeah.
I don't do that, then we don't know the same Christ.
Yeah.
He didn't come die for you on a cross so that you didn't sin that much.
Yeah.
He came and died to free you and not only forgive you, but free you.
Correct.
from sin.
Yeah. The past, the present, and the future.
Yes.
Yeah, all of it. So, okay. So you get deep really quick, man. It doesn't take long for you. You're very passionate about it. Okay. If you could have dinner with and hang on before we go any further, the biblical figure that I would sit down and have dinner with would be Paul. Just, because he wrote most of the New Testament and his radical change and everything. That's always been the guy.
Paul, not Saul. I wouldn't want to eat dinner with Saul.
Yeah, no, yeah, Saul. You probably end up getting your head cut off. What about a famous athlete that you would like to meet and sit down and talk to, past or present, dead or alive? Who you think it would be?
I'll do this for my dad. Johnny Unitas.
Johnny Unitas.
My dad's favorite player.
Yeah.
Just to tell him my dad's going to love you.
There you go. That's good. Mine would probably be Nolan Ryan, just because my dad named me after him.
Nolan.
Yeah. And so that short story real quick, my dad was a big time Astros fan, and so my little brother's an Astros fan. I became a Rangers fan because when I started paying attention to baseball, Nolan Ryan was a Ranger, and that was my furthest memory.
He was only there for like 30 years.
Yeah, so it's still
throwing gas.
He was throwing no hitters at 43 years old. So
he threw gas when they had him do
the first pitch.
The first pitch, it was like 83.
Yeah,
he's like 75 years old.
I know he's
throwing gas, man.
He was an animal in the weight room. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received, either in faith or in life?
Well, I'll say this. I don't know if there's a certain saying, but watching my dad. My dad is one of the most selfless and humble people I know. Mm-hmm. He's been having diabetes for about 25 years. He has some symptoms that break all the bones in his feet. He's been having a hole in his foot for a decade now because it doesn't heal. And he still spends his entire life serving people.
Wow.
And my dad's entire life is built around other people, serving other people. I mean, he's in no good health of his own, but he'll go sit with elderly people that need somebody to sit with them. And not only sit with them, man, he shares the gospel with them. He spends years with these people.
Yeah.
And the highlight of their day is my dad coming over, for Veterans or Memorials Day. My dad will get in the truck and he'll go over to the graveyard and clean up veterans and, who have passed away, clean up their tombstones, put new flowers out, make sure everything's nice, and it's just funny. Me and him went to Texas. He's into metal detecting now.
Okay.
That's his thing.
Yeah.
And my dad has things, bro. When he gets into the thing.
Yeah. He's all in.
He's in, man.
Yeah.
And his thing is metal detecting right now and collecting old bricks.
Okay.
I never thought I'd be driving down the highway looking for old bricks, but it makes him happy, man.
Yeah.
So we did it. I'll show you some funny pictures later. But we ended up on this old road. I mean, bro, we had no clue where we were at. I was right outside of Jasper, Texas. I mean, we ain't seen civilization in 30 minutes, man. And we're driving down the road, and sure enough, and my family will love this, but we see a cemetery sign. My dad's stopping. We're going to the cemetery. So we go out there and we see some old tombstones from the 1800s, early 1900s. And, my dad actually started taking care of them. And I was just like, who does this?
Yeah.
And swept it off a little bit and just to give respect and honor to people.
Yeah.
So I would just say, seeing the humility and selflessness of my dad is not characteristics that I possess.
Right.
So seeing that in him and then seeing how much people love him because of that.
Yeah.
I want to love people more. That is a struggle that I go through daily. And I think more people need to be honest about that.
Yeah.
I want to love people more. I want to be around people more. I want to be around people more. And, me and my family, we joke when my dad passes away, we're going to have to rent out the Burton Coliseum in Lake Charles, which is the biggest thing they have over there because everybody loves him.
Yeah.
And everybody knows him. And it's because he never met a stranger.
Right.
He never met a person feel awkward. He never judged a person in their situation. He's always loved them and he's always helped them as much as he could.
That's awesome.
And that's just, some characteristics that I want in my life.
Yeah. I had a really good father. He had his demons that he battled with some drug addiction stuff and everything like that. But he always showed us love and how to respect people, and he was always the funniest guy in the room, that type of guy. Yeah. But my mom has, ever since I can remember, she's always just she's reflected what Christ is. And I don't know if she knows that she's doing that, that's just how she is, taking care of other people and stuff like that. So, and it's been real big on me, and it's helped me kind of be who I am. So, I don't even know how we got on that question, but, that was the best piece of advice. Okay. Yeah. What about, what's outside of the Astros? Do you pull any other teams?
MLB?
Yeah, MLB.
Sox.
The Sox.
I'll pull with the Sox. I grew up with a guy named Jace Peterson who's played for 7 or 8 different clubs. Yeah. So whenever he's on one of those teams, I'll follow him. Obviously, I'm rocking with the Pirates right now with Gaines, man.
Right.
I mean, generational talent.
Yeah, dude's an animal.
Every single team outside the state of New York, I can live with.
I am right there with you.
And Los Angeles can't do it, won't do it. I love some of the guys that went over there.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman.
Yeah. I think the Yankees, they got LeMahieu up there. It's hard for me to root against LeMahieu. But, man, I hope he loses every game for the rest of his career.
I'm with you.
Until he leaves there. Man. And I'm just hoping and praying, that Bregman doesn't end up anywhere near enough.
Oh, man.
It's hurting me to lose Bregman.
The last that I heard is that he was going to end up in Philadelphia. That was the last thing. Yeah, I don't mind Philadelphia.
I can live with them. They're not relevant, so I can live with them.
I don't like I can't stand the Yankees. I love the Red Sox. That documentary that they got on Netflix right now.
It's fun, man. Grit, hard work, everything I believe in. Yeah, didn't have that much talent.
Punching A-Rod in the face.
And absolutely. Yeah, loved it.
But
I wasn't a fan of Pedro throwing the old man down.
Yeah. Well, in that documentary when they showed that, he did come at him, and he was
by the head.
Yeah, he looked like he was going to punch him.
I changed it. I was a pretty big fan. I was just trying to be PR for the podcast.
Yeah, no.
In private,
we want to be real here.
In private, I chuckled, man.
Yeah, no doubt. What's your favorite food? So I'll say this: I will put some stuff on Facebook that I'm cooking. And you will throw some comments out there like, "Oh, bro, that don't look too good," or something like that. You're very critical of my cooking, and so I got to let you taste something. But I'm kind of scared too, because when you're critical of somebody's cooking, that means you might be.
I don't mean to be critical. Yeah. Usually, it's try to be helpful.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Just all the mistakes I've made.
I got you.
I love to cook.
Yeah.
It is the only thing that could make this podcast better if it was faith, football, and food.
There you go. We might be able to make that happen.
I love cooking.
Yeah.
My favorite food, I'm from South Louisiana, man, it's gumbo, man.
Gumbo.
A good gumbo.
Now, chicken and sausage or seafood?
Chicken and sausage, and not andouille.
And you put tomatoes in your gumbo, right?
Don't ever make me cuss on this podcast. No, I don't even put tomatoes on tomato sandwiches. No, I do put eggs in it.
Yeah,
which is something.
You put the whole egg in there and let it boil in there? Yeah. So I didn't start... I don't do that, but I didn't
catch some slack for this, but try it.
I wasn't introduced to that until I worked at that plant in St. Charles, and all those guys did. That was like second. They put eggs in their spaghetti.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Yeah, and so
if you do it right,
yeah,
it is. I've been picked on so much over here for doing that,
right?
And then I serve people my gumbo.
Yeah,
and my wife's late grandmother, I loved her, man. I cherished her. She was a beautiful soul. And she loved me. We had a great relationship, and she used to pick on me for putting eggs in my gumbo.
Right.
She thought it was the most disgusting thing she ever heard of.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, Malou, it's the best thing in the gumbo. And she said, there's no. I said, look, I'm going to put one there. Eat it if you want, but if not, give it back to me.
Right.
And
don't let it go to waste.
I can tell you this. She had an empty bowl.
Yeah.
And a few weeks later, I cooked another gumbo. And she told me, she said, hey, baby, pull a couple of them eggs. I made a believer out of it.
Yeah, there you go. Thanksgiving's coming up next week. So what are you fired up about to put on your plate? What's your top 3 Thanksgiving entrees or whatever?
Not a good subject because I hate Thanksgiving.
Do you?
Outside of my sister's squash casserole,
yeah,
green bean casserole, Gumbo.
Gumbo.
I'm a gumbo for Thanksgiving guy.
So you're the next couple days, the leftover turkey. No, not even that.
Not a turkey guy. I love turkey sandwiches.
Yeah.
Sliced turkey.
I got you.
I'm just not big on Thanksgiving. I don't like ham.
Man.
If turkey's done right,
Yeah.
I mean, it's good.
I got you.
But I shouldn't say I don't like Thanksgiving food. I love casseroles, man. I ain't ran into too many I don't like.
Yeah.
You know, sweet potato casserole, from the sweet ones to the savory ones. I love a goulash type dish where everything comes together. But
my aunt,
gumbo.
Patsy, who passed away.
Oh, that woman can cook.
Yeah,
Her name was Patsy.
Yeah.
That woman can cook.
She cooked every Thanksgiving. It was and I'm probably going to butcher the name of this thing, and we'll probably get slammed for this too. It's a melon casserole. You ever heard of that? I said it right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know it tasted good. Now, it took me, I had to get to about
It's like a bell pepper.
Yeah. I had to get to about 16 years old before I would eat it.
Could appreciate it.
Yeah. And, but man, I miss that. I really do.
I miss my mama's broccoli dressing, man.
Broccoli dressing.
Man, that stuff we used to fight. She would make a Magnalite, the big pot.
Yeah.
And I mean, we would wipe that stuff out. It was broccoli with ground meat and rice.
Yeah.
Man, she just... Oh, that woman, man.
Yeah. So my wife, she hammers it with the green bean casserole and the sweet potato casserole and with a little crunch on the top of it.
Gotta have it.
And then my mom does Mississippi mud really good. Oh yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. So the inner fat kid in me is really jumping up for joy.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah. So let me ask you this. What's the one thing that you maybe want to share with the audience they may not know? Is
About
there
me?
Yeah.
Like a fun fact?
Yeah. Fun fact from Zach.
I was in the National Spelling Bee.
National.
Yeah.
That's
5th grade.
So how many spelling bees do you have to win to get to the National Spelling
Well,
Bee?
put it to you like this. I won at my school.
Yeah.
And then I went to McNeese.
Yeah.
And I lost out on the first word. But technically,
you made
part of the National Spelling Bee.
There you So if we look it up, you're on the T-shirt, right? That everybody.
I don't know.
Right?
I've never actually looked into it.
That's awesome.
I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever been a part of.
Yeah.
It's funny, man. I did not care.
Right.
I did not want to be a nerd. I did not want to be smart. You know, kids think it's dumb to be smart back then, you know. But I won the spelling bee.
Yeah.
I go to McNeese after weeks of not preparing. My dad trying to get me prepared. And I'm like, Dad, I just don't care.
Yeah.
And then honestly, I had a little pamphlet and I nailed every word he asked me.
Right.
So I was like, I don't really need to practice, you know. I was the first kid eliminated, man. My name's Manuel. So, you know, whenever they got to it, you know, the kid before me had a word like aqua or bucket or something. I'm about to slam this home, man.
Yeah.
And the word they asked me was heroin. And I was like, What? Never heard of this in my life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a drug.
Right.
It was a heroic act.
Yeah.
Or heroic female.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I spelled the drug.
Yeah.
I was like, I've never heard this word in my life. So it's funny, like when I lost out, I immediately fell apart, man. I cried like a baby girl, man.
Didn't even want to be there.
I was so embarrassed, man. And my dad scooped me up, brought me to CC's Pizza, and it was all good.
There you go.
But I was in the
That's
National
awesome.
Spelling Bee.
Man, that's good, bro. So we got us a national spelling bee contender here, and but look, I'm really fired up about this. I really appreciate you coming on, and it's going to be a good journey. Got a lot of good things we can talk about, and so Zach, it's good to have you, and I'm looking forward to what we got coming, man. It's going to be pretty exciting.
Good to be here, man.
Yep, so excited. Good. Well, look, we appreciate y'all. Thanks for tuning in. That's the end of the episode. Be sure to tune in on Friday for that next 2-minute testimony. And if you'd like to share your story, man, let us know. We'd love to hear it. So, Faith Under the Lights, we're checking out.